Hi, this is regarding Chapter 3, Neighborhood Analysis on the principle of appraisal. A property value is almost directly affected by what is going on in the neighborhood in which the property is located. So, the simplest definition of neighborhood is a part of the city, a smaller segment within a larger city. While it's common practice to describe a neighborhood by its physical appearance, it's actually the people who live in that neighborhood that shape the nature and characteristic of that area. So any change to the economic, political, social values and resources and even outlook of the people in the neighborhood can ultimately influence the physical appearance and character of the neighborhood and hence the valuation. Now, what are the boundaries of a neighborhood? So there are like three specific areas when it comes to the boundaries of a neighborhood. One is a natural boundary, where there are lakes, rivers, hills, mountains, and ravines. And there's also political boundary of a neighborhood, which is a municipal boundary or the city limit, the land use and zoning changes, and the school areas. And then again, there's a man-made boundaries like a railroad track, major highways, or roads or arterial roads, right of way for any public utilities. So when so these are the three areas of a or three boundaries of the neighborhood. To recap, it's natural, political, and man-made. So when people determine the nature and characteristics of a neighborhood, it is still important to identify the boundaries of the area. And for boundaries, we essentially look at the natural, political, and man-made boundaries. Now, again, in addition, there's a bunch of neighborhood neighborhood factors like physical, economic, political, and social. So, in terms of physical, it relates to the location in relation to services and amenities, stability of uses like property uses and vacancies and sale price trends, legislative impact such as taxation, improvements, local improvements and official plan, restrictions, social, which is like political growth, decline, crime rate, and age grouping. So, for example, let's say if a salesperson ward has been asked to provide an appraisal for a single family home in a low density neighborhood. So, the way the salesperson ward is going to describe the neighborhood would be in terms of four areas or four factors. One is the physical, which is the poor location can offset many factors that would determine that would otherwise enhance its values within the neighborhood. So the salesperson will consider proximity to public highways, parks, schools, churches, retail, and service outlets. Topography, landscape availability, and quality of the utilities. The checklist would also include the nuisance or hazards as smoke, noise pollution, and heavy traffic. Now, in terms of economic, which essentially means the stability of uses, property values, vacancies, and sale price trend. So, what will give regards to the stability of uses, property values, vacancies, new construction, personal and family income levels, degree of maintenance, like the pride of ownership, stage in the neighborhood area, like the life cycle, amount of undeveloped land available, mortgage lending practices, interest rates, sale price trends, and rate of turnover. In terms of political and governmental, what uh, needs to be aware of the legislative impact of such as taxation, local improvement, and official plan. And again, there could be things like zoning regulations, building codes, property taxes, local improvements, taxes, official plan and site plan control agreements, and deed restrictions. Now, in terms of social, there is a significant social factor include population trend with respect to growth or decline, trends to natural to larger, smaller family sizes, harmony or size of harmony or ethnic or economic grouping, educational attitude, level of prestige, crime rate, age groupings, and population densities. Now, in terms of trend analysis, it is impossible to value a property without understanding what trends in a neighborhood are affecting its value. It's also important to understand that trends can change over time. So it's important for an appraiser or salesperson to be informed about the current trends in the area that they practice real estate in. A trend is defined as a series of related changes brought in by change a chain of cause and effect. A trend possesses four distinct features such as time, direction, cause, and effect. So those are the four areas for for possible ways to analyze trends. There's time, direction, cause, and effect. Now, examples of trend would include change in the floor plan, smaller families, aging population, and high unemployment. Now, let's look at the neighborhood life cycle phases. One trend that needs and to be assessed by an appraiser is the life cycle phase of a neighborhood. In other words, what phase in the neighborhood, what phase is the neighborhood going through at the time of appraisal. So again, there are four phases of growth. There's a growth phase, there's a stability phase, there's a declining phase, and there's a re- renewal phase. So the phases are the life cycle would include the growth phase, the stability phase, the declining phase, and the renewal phase. So, with regards to the growth phase, when the subdivision is first developed, and amenities such as schools, plazas, parks, etc., are being added or have just been added. That is the growth phase. The stability phase is when the neighborhood is completely built up, as it reaches a height of popularity and the value are at its highest. The declining phase is when the neighborhood is losing appeal and popularity. Properties look poorly maintained. Retail and commercial businesses are closing and higher than usual vacancies and values are also declining. The renewal phase is when the neighborhood is rebounding after a period of neglect, is in demand again, new construction starts, becomes popular again, and the retailers start coming back. So to rephrase, any neighborhood goes to its life cycle phases. One is the first is the growth phase, then the stability phase, declining phase, and the renewal phase. Now the next area is the conformity. It is always important to look at the neighborhood in terms of whether it has a certain level of conformity with respect to the type, size, type, quality, and size, and the ultimate value of the home. The level of conformity, regression, and progression can certainly impact the property values quite significantly in the immediate area. Very often, the larger the disparity between the homes in the neighborhood, the larger is the impact, is the value impact. Just because one property is twice the size of another does not necessarily mean it is worth twice as much. It is common for owners of the larger and higher quality properties in the neighborhood to point to the value of similar homes in the superior area and claim the value of their property to be the same. They are often unwilling to accept the fact that the inferior homes surrounding their houses are having a locational impact. So to kind of understand the process of conformity, it's always important to look at the neighborhood in terms of whether it has certain level of conformity with respect to the type, quality, size of the homes. The level of conformity, both regression and progression, can certainly impact property values quite significant in the immediate area. Very often, the larger the disparity between the whole the neighborhood, the larger is the value impact. Just because one property is twice the size of another one does not necessarily mean it is worth twice as much. It is common for owners of the larger and highest quality properties in the neighborhood to point to the value of similar homes in the superior area and claim the value of their homes to be the same. They are often unwilling to accept the fact that the inferior homes surrounding their houses are having a locational impact. In the neighborhood A, 1% of the homes are detached, two-storied with sizes ranging from 2,400 to 800 square feet, and other 99% of the homes are semi-detached ranging from 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. Your investigation reveals that the smaller semi-detached homes sell between 185 and $200,000, but the larger detached sell between 280 and 290. The same larger detachment in the neighborhood B, 80% of the homes are detached, 12,400 are sell for between 380 and $390,000. From the information above, the value of the large detached home in neighborhood A is being pulled down by the value of overwhelming number of smaller semi-detached uh, semi-detached properties. So this gives an idea of what the conformity means. It's kind of, it says that the lack of conformity, like say in the neighborhood A, where most of the houses were semi-detached, um, and only a very few of the houses were were the single family detached ones, that would suffer. Those 1% houses would suffer a, a lack of, or a reduction in the in the value, because they are non-conforming. Coming to the next area, next point, which is about collecting information. In order to value a property, you must have to understand the factors and forces that are at work within the neighborhood, and be able to assess and finally measure the impact on the marketability and value. This obviously requires that you collect information that you will need to use in your valuation. There are many different ways and places from which the information can be gathered. For example, Stats Canada, municipal offices, real estate boards, newspaper, and CMHC. Now, Stats Canada make up and size of families, population, and age makeup, income levels, and type of jobs, municipal offices, property assessments, zoning and plant construction, housing stats, business employment opportunities, economic forecast, real estate boards, sales information, price levels, demand and supply, newspaper, the economy, local development and trends, whether positive or negative in nature, CMHC, the economy, mortgage rates, and consumer expenditure, home improvements and renovations. So these are the areas where you can collect your information. To recap, it starts Canada, municipal offices, real estate boards, newspaper, and CMHC. The above sources are excellent. However, the physical inspection of the neighborhood, which includes talking to local residents and salesperson and appraisals, will provide you with the wealth of information and confirm with your own eyes and ears the information you have gathered from other sources. This information includes the pride of ownership, the appeal of housing stock and streets, and the availability and proximity of facilities such as shopping, transportation, school, parks, etc. Of course, the internet has over the past few years become an important source of information. Most common offices, newspapers, and real estate boards have a website from which you can gather um, from the information from the comfort of your home or houses. There are also commercial websites that provide details, specific neighborhood information on everything from theaters to communities centers to job opportunities, and also the map of these locations are very often included. Measuring background value. As previously mentioned, it is important when collecting information on the neighborhood that you also analyze and measure the impact on value from each factor and forces. In order to measure the impact and value, you will have to take a look at either one or more, both of the following: the sales listing and expired listing that have occurred in the subject neighborhood over a given period of time during which the factors and forces under analysis were or were not present, the sale listing and expired listing that have occurred over a period of time in similar other neighborhood which have not been subject to the same forces and factors as under analysis in the subject area. It is a combination of all factors and forces at work that will eventually set the prices being received by the homes in the neighborhood. Obviously, the prices and price range of homes in the area will determine the value and prices that subject will eventually receive when sold. Measure impact on a value. So the sales and listing and expired listing of the subject neighborhood over a period of time when the factors of forces were or were not present, the sales listing and expired listing in other similar neighborhood over a period of time when the same factors and forces were present or were not present. Example, one neighborhood is only half a mile from the heavy industrial development while the similar neighborhood is 5 miles away. There will be a negative impact on values in the first neighborhood. So the couple of of examples and scenarios that we can consider. For example, if say let's say there's neighborhood A, which is very close to a heavy industrial development, and there's neighborhood B, which is a little further away, and we see that in the neighborhood A, a two-storied, 2,000 square feet homes sell for $210,000, while whereas the same new home or same homes in neighborhood B sell for $230,000. So we can see that there is a significant difference between in the prices in between neighborhood A and neighborhood B, just because of a, um, of a location of a heavy industrial development near to neighborhood A. So to recap, at any one point, there are physical, social, economic, and political forces at work in a neighborhood that can impact the value of the neighborhood within various properties within the neighborhood. There are four distinct features of a trend must be considered in order to be able to accurately value property. The four possible stages that a neighborhood can go through in terms of its life cycle. Each stage will have different impact on value. The level of conformity of properties within the neighborhood can have an impact on value of the property being appraised. There are many scenarios from which an appraiser can collect necessary information on the neighborhood. Information needs to be collected and analyzed, and then conclusion must be supported by market data. Sales and listings are the sources from which the dollar impact of the neighborhood forces can be measured. I think with this we are towards the end of chapter 3, neighborhood analysis. Thanks for your time.